At a nightclub, a woman named Tara came. She had just come home from work, and she had come to the club to celebrate her first case win. Yes, she is a lawyer. After changing her clothes, she immediately got ready to start the celebration, and of course her arrival was warmly welcomed by her boyfriend, Mudassir, who is a DJ. Then, the celebration party immediately began. That night, the party was also enlivened by Tara's friends. But in the midst of the happiness in her dance, her mother immediately called. But Tara chose not to pick up the call, and coincidentally her cell phone battery also ran out. So, Tara asked her friend to charge her phone to a bartender who worked there, while she continued her party. The next day, Tara woke up because someone had come to her hotel room. He is the bartender who comes to return Tara's phone that was left at the bar. Later, this man also wanted to explain that last night, someone called Tara's phone many times. Then, at that time, there was a phone call from Tara's father and he asked why Tara didn't pick up his calls. Even all of Tara's siblings, Karen and Nicole, are very difficult to contact. So that Horace, Tara's father, kept throwing curses. However, because Tara did not want to argue with her father, she suggested her father scold Tara's mother instead. Then, after the call was hung up, Tara returned to the bartender to give him money. But that is not what he wants. Haltingly, this man tried to give information about Tara's father, who often called Tara's phone so that he was forced to pick up the call. Apparently, Tara's father wanted to give news that Tara's mother had now passed away. Tara was very shocked and her friendly face slowly changed. Suddenly, she was silent without a word, so she returned to call her father and let go of her tears. Then with regret, Tara felt that she was just sitting waiting for her mother's death. She also felt guilty for not replying to messages from her mother, and she was also very, very sorry for not giving news about her first case victory to her mother. While on the other hand, a household assistant named Nita came over to Harris to give him a glass of juice. But Nita's call was ignored by Horace, because he was too focused on recording and remembering whether his sister-in-law and mother-in-law already knew about his wife's death. So are their relatives. So, Nita gave a suggestion if Horace could post the information about Gayatri's death through her Facebook account. In fact, Nita also said that Horace's son, Nicole, still could not be contacted, so Nita asked Horace not to stress too much and immediately drink the juice she had prepared, especially since Horace had not eaten anything since this morning. Meanwhile, Tara is now seen getting ready to travel home and asks Mudassir to order 2 tickets so he can also come with her. But Mudassir is very worried considering that Horace doesn't really like him. Even though he also knows that Tara's mother loves him, Mudassir chooses to come when Gayatri's body has been cremated. While Harris gets a call from Gayatri's sister, Gita, who is seen looking after her father in the hospital. Then, with a heavy heart, she said that she could not attend Gayatri's funeral. Even the father also doesn't know if Gayatri, his daughter, has died. Then for the umpteenth time, Nita gave news that Nicole still could not be contacted. But she had sent a message to ask him to come home soon, because his mother had died. After that, Horace approached his pet, Doggy, to feed him. And along with the sound of a horn, we see the figure of Gayatri, who at that time came with a small doggy, and her arrival was warmly welcomed by her sons and daughter, so that happiness was seen on their faces. But the beauty of togetherness is now gone and only a memory. Then, we are also shown one of Harris's sons, Karen, and his wife, Daisy. Karen is the eldest son of Horace, who lives in San Francisco because he runs a business there. While his younger brother, Angad, who lives in Dubai, is seen in the middle of receiving a call from Harris, and in the call, Angad says that his flight will be made the next day. Then, after hanging up the call, Angad's tears could no longer be held back because he already knew that the mother he loved was gone and would never come back. Before Gayatri left, she also sent a message to Karen. She also said she missed Angad and asked about the case that was being lived by Tara. But unfortunately, Tara just had time to reply to this message, full of regret. Then, we are again shown the good times when they were still together. Smiles of happiness, laughter, togetherness, and Karen, who was shocked when he saw Gayatri smoking his cigarette. So that it can be concluded, if Gayatri is a mother who is very close to her sons and daughters. But it will only be the most beautiful memory in Tara's memory, because her mother is now lying lifeless right in front of her. Gayatri's best friends are also present at the funeral, and Nita is serving drinks to the 3 women. The 3 women are Gayatri's best friends, but among them there is one woman who feels cramps in her legs because she is not used to sitting without a chair. So, she complains because they should get seats, because they got there early. Then, on the other hand, Horace is seen being tutored regarding funeral traditions by a man named P.P. Singh. Seeing Horace, who was looking sad, one of Gayatri's friends began to wonder about the reason for Gayatri's death, so this became the subject of gossip. The conversation even ended with them talking about health, and one of them told the jogging activity that she often did after she drank coffee in the morning, where she did it wearing shoes. And do not forget, she also showed the price of the shoes she was talking about. But regardless of her friend's arrogance, the woman who felt cramps in her legs thought more about the chair, because she couldn't take it anymore. Then, when Horace asked PP Singh to continue to guide him in carrying out the tradition, Tara came up to him and confirmed that her mother did not like the rituals that were being performed, such as cotton being placed on the nose and her toes being tied. But this was immediately denied by Harris, considering that it is a tradition that must be followed. So we can understand here that Tara is a modern girl who doesn't like tradition. After seeing the debate going on, finally one of the trio mama saw that there was a chair that was not being used, so that way she immediately occupied it. But unfortunately, one of them still did not get a seat. Therefore, in various ways, she too tries to shoo the old man beside her out of his chair, saying that they are Gayatri's close friends. Then, shortly after Gayatri's photo was released, Gayatri's best friends were touched and recalled Gayatri's smile in her lifetime. But one of them even talked about the photos that would be displayed if they died later, because according to her, it had to be prepared, bearing in mind that if she didn't have a single photo, because the photos on her cell phone were more group photos. Her friend immediately gave suggestions to immediately take pictures with a smile, but this was immediately denied. Because why was she smiling in the photo next to her dead body? Not long after, Nita's parents came to the funeral. Along with that, there was a lady present and she is a member of Gayatri's group of associates. Her delay was immediately questioned by her friends, but apart from that, they all agreed and divided the task of making food for 3 days, which would later be given to the Gayatri family. Then, they went back to gossiping about what dish they would serve, and one of the women would make a lomatar from peanuts because she just bought an expensive refrigerator, so she can freeze the beans first. Then with that, they also have agreed to their respective duties. Meanwhile, even though Nina is not Horace and Gayatri's biological daughter, she feels very sad over Gayatri's departure, because their family has been kind and has cared for her since she was 5 years old. After trying to calm Nina down, Horace gets a call from Angad who wants to inform him that he will arrive late as he has to be stuck in Dubai. But even though Horace had understood his condition, when he heard that Angad was ordering food, Horace was very annoyed, because he assumed that Angad was having a party in the midst of his mother's death. So, to avoid any misunderstanding, Angad tried to explain it. Unfortunately, Horace did not give Angad a chance to speak. Now, we go back to the funeral home. In the midst of the sadness that Tara was feeling, suddenly a crow perched right next to her mother, until Tara immediately chased it away. But what she did instead received a reprimand from PP Singh, because according to his belief, the bird could be the incarnation of a god, where this statement was also supported by one of Gayatri's friends, making Tara even more irritated with the nonsense they always talk about in the name of tradition. But because she also didn't want to have more problems, Tara finally decided to enter the house when Horace stared at her. While in the bedroom, Tara's gaze was immediately fixed on a white box where she kept Gayatri's jewelry. And there was an earring that she found that was able to remind her of the past memories, where at that time, with a face full of smiles, she came to her mother carrying both of her earrings. Even though she is not allowed to borrow the earrings because she is a careless child, Tara is sure that one day she will definitely have them when her mother dies. And that statement is now a reality. Soon, Karen along with his wife finally arrived. But because he was too hasty, he fell right beside his mother's body. Then, hugged by his father, he cried to express all his sadness, because like Tara, so far he has only been too focused on his career without caring about the condition of his parents. So that was when Horace decided to hand over all his responsibilities to Karen regarding Gayatri's funeral. While Tara still can't accept the tradition, she complains to Geeta. Geeta instead asks Tara to just follow what her father is doing, remembering that now they also have no other choice. After hearing this suggestion, an annoyed Tara decided to hang up the call, then while staring straight at the fence, she immediately recalled her past memories. Precisely when she had just arrived home and informed her parents that later, she would stay at Madassar's apartment when she was in Mumbai. However, Harris immediately opposed this, because he did not want his daughter to live with a man, even though the two of them were close friends. Therefore, he plans to book a hotel room for Tara. But because they both have a tough character, finally there was an argument between them. Because on the other hand, Tara actually just wanted to live independently and not bother her parents. But calmly, Gayatri didn't think too much about the debate that was going on. Even while watching the program on television, she instead asked Horace not to dirty the pillow because his hair had just been dyed. Back to the main timeline, while everyone was sad to let Gayatri go, Karen seemed busy looking for flight tickets for his return later, so that made Horace feel very angry. Then, in that silent atmosphere, Gayatri's figure seemed to appear carrying a cup of tea, just to warn them not to forget to pray, because no one can be sure who will go first. The next day, when Gayatri's body is about to be put in the ambulance, finally Angad arrives. Then, with a very sad expression on his face, he immediately ran to pick up his late mother's casket as his last respect. Then, while gently touching the mother's head, it is revealed that in fact Angad is Gayatri's foster child who was adopted from the orphanage. And when they see Angad peeking at them from behind the door, Gayatri affectionately asks him to come closer, and that love is the reason why Angad loves them so much even though they are not related by blood. Not long after Gayatri's body was put in the car, Daisy appeared from inside the house wearing all black, making her immediately the center of attention. and realizing that she had chosen the wrong suit, she finally decided to change her clothes immediately. And when everyone had gone to deliver Gayatri's body, their favorite doggy could only lie right beside Gayatri's photo. Because on that day there were many bodies to pack, they had to wait their turn for 20 minutes. Then, it was at that moment that PP Singh tried to explain to Tara and Daisy that the souls of people who had died could enter their bodies again. For this reason, so that this does not happen, they are required to cover their noses and tie the big toes of people who have died. While at the same time as the explanation that PP Singh was giving, there was a conversation among Gayatri's friends regarding the WhatsApp group that had just been created. The group is titled 2022 Death of Gayatri. Because they felt that the title was not quite right, they started looking for several options such as Horace is lonely, Harris needs us, and so on. Finally, they agreed on the name Go Chandigarh, remembering that word is what Gayatri always says when calling them. And after agreeing with the name, they also don't forget to take a selfie together to be used as a profile photo in their group. Turning to the other side, even though all this time Angad and Nita had a relationship secretly, but it seems Gayatri already knew about it, because when Nita wanted to deliver drinks, Gayatri had asked if she had replied to the love letter given by Angad. Even though Angad has grown up, Gayatri still often calls him a boy. And after hearing that, Angad could only smile because even though he has grown up, his mother still sees him as a kid. Not long after, when Gayatri's body began to be slowly placed on the pile of wood, the tears of sadness could no longer be stopped. So does Geeta, although she can only see the process through a video call made by Nita. Then at night, when Horace heard a voice coming from Karen's room, he immediately called him, and after knowing that Karen was having intercourse with his wife, Horace felt very angry because he assumed that Karen was only concerned with himself without caring about his grieving family. But in order to avoid misunderstandings, Karen finally explained that he had promised his mother to give a grandchild on her birthday. Because of that, according to the advice given by the doctor, they are required to routinely have intercourse so as not to start the program all over again. But after hearing all the explanations, Horace even cornered Karen again by saying that it was Karen's smoking habit that made it difficult for Karen to have children. Hearing the fight, Tara, who felt irritated, had mentioned her mother's funeral, because in her view it was not what her mother wanted. Because they always obey PP Singh's words in the name of tradition. Not wanting to continue arguing with his children, Horace finally chose to enter his bedroom. But before that, he emphasized to Tara not to continue to complain because they had indeed done this tradition for thousands of years. And if Tara didn't believe it, it didn't mean she could think what they were doing was wrong. The next day, they all went to the Ganges to sprinkle Gayatri's ashes, according to the advice given by PP Singh and the same as that done by the Indian in general. Karen immediately touched the feet of a priest who was there, which Tara was reluctant to do, because basically she was never willing to touch other people's feet even though it was her own grandfather. Because for Tara, there are still other ways to respect older people without having to touch their feet. Because he really understood how Tara's attitude was, Tara's grandfather patiently said that if a woman would definitely touch the feet of an older person when she was married or became someone's daughter-in-law. Before Gayatri's ashes were sprinkled in the Ganges River, there was a priest there who tried to give information to Horace's family as to why everyone was doing this. And because there are several versions in the community, he shows pictures on his laptop and tells stories about Radhahastinapura, a kingdom in the Mahabharata story. According to his explanation, in ancient times, when the queen was on the bank of the Ganges, a king named Santanu came to propose to her and the queen accepted him. But with the condition that later, the king may not question what she is doing, because if the king does that, then the queen will leave forever. After they had their first child, the queen immediately sacrificed their child just like that by drowning him in the Ganges River. This was witnessed directly by the king, but remembering the promise they had agreed on, the king chose not to ask what the queen's purpose was for doing this. However, because this action was carried out continuously, finally when their 8th child was born, the king had the courage to ask and the queen explained that actually, she was the daughter of Lord Brahma who had been cursed by Rishi Phases, so that all of her children born in the human world must be immersed in the Ganges so that they can reach heaven. That's why people believe that sprinkling ashes into the Ganges River can wash away all the sins of people who have died. After hearing all these explanations, Tara, who still couldn't believe it, stood up immediately to emphasize that according to her, spreading ash into the river only because it had good phosphate content for agriculture. Shortly after Tara left them, the priest explained to Horace that the 8th son of the king who was rescued was the commander of the Kauravas in Mahabharata, he is Bhisma. Then, the priest invited Tara to talk to exchange ideas regarding stories that had happened in the past. The priest also explained that touching the feet of elders does not make them dishonorable, because they do so that they can be prayed for. In fact, he also explained that Gayatri often came there to distribute food to underprivileged children, as Tara is currently doing. Not long after, according to what Tara had said, while looking at the jar containing his wife's ashes, Horace took the time to ask Gayatri to speak for the last time. Because lately, he's always been preoccupied with the process of funeral rituals so that he forgets the most very important things. And after discussing some of their moments together, with tears which started to wet his cheeks, Horace said that now he no longer knows what to do. Even Horace doesn't know how to tell Nakul about his mother's death, because so far, Nakul has only received news that his mother's condition is not good. Then, Horace also told about the promise they had made, to always be together, for life and death. Horace begs Gayatri to return to his side, because he really can't live without Gayatri beside him. But because he realized that this would not happen, with a heavy heart, he finally tried to give up the departure of his wife who he loved so much by sprinkling her ashes on the surface of the Ganges River. Before leaving there, Horace says that he also knows about Gayatri's smoking habit. Until a few days later, when they all returned to the priest, according to the tradition they believed in, as the first child, Karen had to shave off his head as a condition for a ritual of purification or sacrifice. When he heard the requirements, Karen, who was worried, immediately invited his father to sit under a tree, because he had something important he wanted to talk to the priest, and Karen didn't want to shave off his hair. Now Karen starts to agree with Tara, who assumes that tradition doesn't make sense. So, in order to change Karen's mind, the priest explains that by shaving one's hair one can lower the ego within them. But what he said was completely ignored by Karen because he could not imagine having to attend an important meeting with a bald head. Seeing Karen, who changed his attitude like that, Tara and the other family members could only look at him, as if they really enjoyed the panic that was being felt by Karen. Even as a result of that, Karen was crying. Finally, the priest explained that actually there is another way they can do it, by asking for help from a person named Gerdhar to replace Karen. After hearing the explanation, a happy Karen immediately calls out name Gerdhar. It turned out Gerdhar is a boy who so far has also been considered a son by Gayatri. And in exchange, Karen is required to buy him any kind of food he wants. Meanwhile, even though he had helped Horace's family a lot in carrying out religious rituals, the priest refused to be given money. Until at night, when they saw and heard many people performing rituals on the banks of the Ganges, Karen discussed Tara's relationship with Mudassar, so that Tara realized that the two of them had not been this close for a long time, like brother and sister. Along with that, the flashback scene is shown again, precisely when Tara came to the hospital to check on the condition of her mother, who was being treated for falling from the toilet at that time. But when she wanted to donate her blood, Horace immediately refused, making Tara feel very angry. In the end, she even clashes with Karen. With the condition of her body lying stiff on the bed, smiling, Gayatri said that at this time she was still alive, and if they still wanted to continue fighting, then they had to wait until she was not in the world anymore. Back to the present. The next day, when PP Singh saw Karen's still thick hair, he was confused. Because of that, he immediately questioned this to Horace. But it seems that everything he said was now ignored, so that PP Singh decided to leave him. Until not long after, when Geeta came there with her father who had recovered, Horace immediately expressed his disappointment, because his father-in-law had previously said that Gayatri would survive until she was 90 years old. And because his father-in-law was also aware of the sadness that Horace was feeling, he explained that that was also what he wanted, because every parent would hope that their children would have a long life. Having been off work for several days, Karen tries to explain to his boss that he still has to be at his parents' house for a while. Because on the 13th day there is still an event that must be made according to their cultural beliefs. And along with the explanation that he was saying, suddenly a food seller called Gayatri's name to offer his food, because this seller did not know if Gayatri had died. Therefore, suddenly Karen also immediately called his mother, and this made Daisy confused. Then Karen begins to realize that his mother is now gone. But he still kept screaming for his mother, where when his mother was still alive, they often bought these snacks with all their family members. After recalling the good times in his life, with a sad face and tears welling up, Karen came to his senses. But he again called his mother in a very low tone. Meanwhile, in a different location, when Tara was looking for her mother's cell phone in the cupboard, she accidentally found a kite. And it turns out that the kite has a lot of memories, where according to Harris's explanation, the initial G that is there is actually not Gayatri, but Geeta. Because at that time, he didn't have the courage to approach Gayatri, who was actually the most beautiful girl in the village at that time. But when he tries to propose to Geeta using the kite, Geeta instead gives it to Gayatri. And after hearing the love story of his parents, which was very unique, Tara immediately bursts out laughing. So that from then on, the relationship between the two of them could improve, just like father and daughter. At the train station, a man just got off the train, and he is Nakul. He walked over to one of the stalls to hitch a ride to charge his cell phone, and Nakul was a young nature lover who had just finished a hike. Along with that, Nita finally finds Gayatri's cell phone, but it is off, so she also does the same thing as Nakul. Then at exactly 12 at night, a surprise was performed by the dancers to celebrate Harris's birthday, which surprise was a plan made by Gayatri before she died, because it was indeed a routine that was often carried out in the family on every Harris's birthday. And apparently, their presence was able to bring smiles to the entire Harris family, who at that time were still trapped in grief. Not to forget, Gayatri also prepared gifts for her husband, 2 holiday passports, which made Harris feel very sad. Meanwhile, Nakul had just received a message sent by Nita regarding his mother's health, so he immediately called home. And after hearing Tara's voice, he felt very happy. But he didn't forget to ask where his mother was because he was worried after reading the message about his mother's health. Unable to answer it, Tara asked Nicole to return home immediately. However, Nicole asks Tara not to tell his return because he wants to surprise their father. Then, after cutting the cake and the dancing was finished, Nicole arrives home. Even he felt very happy with the presence of his entire family. Then, Nicole immediately hugged his father and wished him a happy birthday. But behind the happiness that Nicole feels, his whole family can only be silent. Nicole says that he has won a bet by his mother, because he has bet that they will all be present on their father's birthday, so with that he rushes to find his mother. But after searching all over the house, Nicole began to feel something was strange, because he couldn't find his mother. And with difficulty, Karen tried to explain, but he was unable to tell the truth. So with a hug that Karen gave, Nicole began to understand what was happening. With tears of sadness and a broken heart, Nicole asks them not to tell lies. Then while crying, he apologized to his father because he was the only child who was not there when his mother died. Then, while showing several photos while climbing the mountain, Nicole also explained to his father that he actually intended to climb on purpose for his mother, because Gayatri had previously advised him not to continue climbing small hills. But unfortunately, after he managed to do it all, instead he had to be left by his mother forever. Then, so that Nicole would not continue to dissolve in sadness, Horace immediately recounted the experience he had been through, right when his parents last took him to school. At that time, they went by taking the right route so that Horace always looked at that route every day, with the hope that his parents would come back to pick him up, because according to information, both of his parents had died. Then, while observing a man on a bicycle taking a similar path, his teacher explained that even though his parents was no longer seen, that did not mean they were gone. Because of that, Horace emphasized to Nicole that even though Gayatri has now taken the right path like his parents, it does not mean that Gayatri is no longer by their side. Until the next day, Nicole was seen already at the barbershop to shave off his hair. Soon, Karen also comes there to do the same thing, shave off his head. According to their beliefs, hair is a symbol of one's ego. While in a different location, when Tara was busy preparing dishes that her mother often made, she was approached by a crow. But this time, she didn't chase it away because she assumed that the crow could be her mother, as P.P. Singh once said. Then, on that sunny day, Horace decided to play his favorite kite with all his family members, and he was very happy when he saw his two sons willing to shave off their hair for the sake of their late mother. Then, in that moment of togetherness, Angad was seen trying to approach Nita. Harris could only smile, as if indicating that he had approved of their relationship. Then, in front of his sons and daughters, Horace deliberately released his kite so that it flew high into the air. And, a few months later, when they were all hanging out together, Daisy came up to Horace to give him a knitted sweater that she had made herself. This immediately made Horace the laughingstock of his children, because for them, Horace looked very strange wearing this knitted sweater. But because it was a gift from his daughter-in-law, Horace still wears it. And shortly thereafter, Mudassir arrives there and is immediately warmly welcomed by all of them, and that's how the film ends. This is a comedy drama film about a family. The plot, the music, and the teamwork are all excellent. You are highly recommended to watch this film with your family. This film does not make you bored because there is humor, drama, and romantic situations that should be appreciated. Overall, this film is fun to watch. And from this, we can conclude that the only thing that cannot be recycled is time wasted without a family.